I'm Cienna.
Oh no, I missed it. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening. Hey, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
I'm sorry. Yelling at them.
This is really embarrassing. Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening to the Just a Person podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to Just a Person, a podcast that explores life's highs, lows, and in-betweens. I'm Madison, and today we're talking to my friend Hailee. Hailee talks to us about early signs and symptoms of diabetes, what it's like being diagnosed with a lifelong illness at a young age, how to educate others on your illness, and the importance of community. Thanks for listening and enjoy! All right, hi guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast, Hailee.
It's nice to be here virtually.
We're going to get things started with a question I'm going to pull out of this new High School Musical hat that I found in my basement. Ooh, this is my favorite question to ask people. What is your biggest fear?
Butterflies. I think we've talked about this before.
Okay, wait.
Explain that a little bit.
It is completely irrational, and I know it's irrational, and I just don't like things that fly. Have I ever had a bad experience with a butterfly? No, they're harmless. So like I said, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's still one of those things that no matter how much I've tried to get over it, just is what it is. And have no problem with spiders, with other insects, just butterflies.
That is really interesting.
Wow. That's so funny.
Yeah, I know. Weird.
Cienna, what about you?
My biggest fear is flying. And my sister just told me a story today that, I don't know if you guys heard, a plane on United, it like exploded going from Colorado to Hawaii. Their engine exploded. There's like a video of it. I didn't look up the details because, as you know, Madison, I am flying in about 14 days and it'll be my first time flying in a year. So I'm already extremely scared. They landed fine. Nobody was injured. But yes, a plane engine on United, I believe, exploded.
And the debris, like they had pictures of the debris in Colorado.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Especially something exploding.
Yeah, so nothing safe. Okay. Positive energy to start it off.
I'll just my biggest fear, I have three, my top three. Number one being kidnapped, number two, bats, and number three, a bug crawling in my ear and laying eggs and the eggs hatching and the babies eating my brain. Those are all in my top. They're all about equal.
They're very specific.
Being kidnapped is understandable. That's also a big fear of mine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now that we've discussed that, let's get into your life, Hailee.
Yeah, Hailee, who are you?
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about like where you're from? I know you moved around a little bit as a kid.
So I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Both my parents are from there. And then we moved to Maine when my dad started or finished medical school. So my dad is a nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist. And so we moved to Maine and lived there for about 7 years. So like my early childhood, kind of up through like 5th grade. And then we moved to Michigan. I lived there before moving to Kansas to go to school.
Wow. Do you have like a favorite state you've been in so far?
Maine for sure. It's beautiful for about 3 weeks of the year, and the rest of the year it's just cold. So, so go and visit. Don't live there.
You moved from New Mexico to Maine. So somewhere in there you were diagnosed with diabetes, correct?
Yes. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 6, I believe. It was right before my 7th birthday. Before that, kind of, I guess one thing you've kind of had me think about was what kind of happened around that time. And I don't have a lot of distinct memories. Obviously, it's like when I was a little kid, but things stand out to me. So I was in a dual classroom. So like where they had 1st and 2nd graders. And because there are so many kids, we had 2 teachers, but we didn't have to ask to go to the bathroom because you couldn't deal with that, right? Like there's just too many kids and not enough staff to kind of answer like, hey, yeah, okay, you can go to the bathroom. So they would just have us sign up on a sheet when we left the room to go to the bathroom. And that was kind of how they monitored to make sure kids weren't just like leaving all the time. Well, like as a 1st grader or 2nd grader, I would only sign the sheet every other time I went to the bathroom. because I would go to the bathroom so much. That's one of the symptoms. And so I even knew, like, this isn't right. And I distinctly remember like making that decision. Like, I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to write down every time I go to the bathroom if they're going to call me out. And my mom used to give me milk money, and I would go right when I got to lunch, get my milk, drink my whole milk, and then try and see if someone else would give me their milk money so that I could have more to drink because I was so thirsty all the time. So those are kind of two things I really remember. And then looking back on pictures, I was really thin. I lost a lot of weight. So I was growing kid. So it's not like that unexpected, but you could probably my wrists are still kind of small, but you could probably take your hand and wrap it around my wrist almost twice as a kid, just because I was so like thin and kind of sickly looking in these pictures. So looking at it now, you're like, oh yeah, there's something wrong with you. But at the time, even my dad, who was in medicine, and he wasn't the first one to kind of sound the alarm that there might be something wrong.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was kind of reading up on it before this talk, and I did see that some of the symptoms were excessive thirst and having to go to the bathroom a lot. So you did have both of those symptoms. I guess, when did somebody finally say, like, was it your pediatrician who was like, something's up? Was it you who finally kind of figured it out?
So it was a couple things, but actually it was my orthodontist.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So another symptom is that you have like fruity smelling breath and your gums start to recede. So I had braces. I've had braces 3 times. So, but I had braces when I was really little on my front 2 teeth. And so I went to the orthodontist, and he had actually pulled my mom aside and said, I think you might want to bring her in to see the doctor and just kind of get this checked out. Maybe suggest that they test for type 1 diabetes, because I, have read up on some of this stuff and know these are some symptoms, and she's exhibiting some of those symptoms. So not where you would expect.
Yeah, that's kind of really impressive that he noticed that. Like, he was on it. Because I wonder, had he not said that, you know what I mean? Like, how long would it have taken?
Mm-hmm. It might have taken a little longer.
Yeah, that's really neat. Props to him.
Yeah. And he's like looking at me and my family. I should have caught it right away. My family should have caught it right away because, like I said, my dad's a doctor. My cousin has type 1 diabetes. Given everything, like, we had the ideal situation for kind of noticing, but I think it's not something you really think about. And like I said, I was young, I was growing, some of those symptoms that may be more obvious when you're a, teenager or even in 5th, 6th, 7th grade were less obvious for a young child because it could just be growing up.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people might kind of feel like that type of stuff is stuff that happens to like other people. It's not stuff that happens to like you or your family. Like, even though he's a doctor, he sees it, but you don't think it's your own kid who.
Yes, of course.
You said that your cousin has type 1 diabetes. Is type 1 diabetes genetic?
If you look at the definition, they're going to tell you it has genetic, environmental, and I think something else, some other type of ways that they could say it, it could affect certain people over other people. I think that's a really generic way of saying they don't know. There's a lot of things they still are not sure. I've had conversations with people that maybe like when we were young, we were exposed to a type of virus, your body fought off the virus, and kind of a side effect or whatever is that it caused some change in your genes that then resulted in you having, lower pancreatic function or no pancreatic function. So there's a lot of theories out there. I have never actually heard a solid answer on that. I do know people who their dad had diabetes, the child had diabetes, their child had diabetes. So obviously there has to be some genetic case. That would just be too unique, too crazy to happen that many times in a lineage. So I definitely think there's some genetic components, but if you look at me, like, no one in my immediate family has it.
Did you ever have any virus when you were younger or anything like that? Like, do you have any theory as to why?
Not that it's identifiable, but I think, again, if you recover pretty quickly, right? If it wasn't something that stands out in our history, like coronavirus, if it's not something that was really big, or like measles or like swine flu, things that we knew, okay, this is going to be a problem, it could cause problems later. If it was like a smaller virus, you might never have known that it affected some kids and not others. So I do think that they have shown that it's becoming a little bit more common. So there may be something to that as well. You know, as more people have it, more people have kids, there maybe is the genetic component. I don't know. Or maybe it's just the fact that we're able to survive longer now because of medical advancements. Who knows? Could be a little bit of both.
I wonder, I didn't look this up or anything, but I wonder if type 1 diabetes, if the rates differ between like different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would point towards obviously environmental. If like the rates are higher in the United States, then, you know.
Right.
That's okay. That's good to know. So they don't really know yet, basically.
Yeah. It's kind of, there's a lot of theories out there. I've never heard of one being proved more true or anything like that. Yeah.
So something that you said that I thought was interesting is how you were trying, even when you were little and you knew something was wrong, you're trying to hide that from people. You know something's wrong, you just feel different than the other kids. Is there anything else, even after you were diagnosed, that it kind of affected you as a kid and made you feel a little bit strange at first?
So I'm very lucky. My parents, because I've known other diabetics, my parents were very hands-off from the beginning. And some people would say that's kind of a negative thing, but I think it actually worked very well for me. I learned immediately, like as a 6, 7-year-old, I was giving my own shots. I was drawing up my own syringes. I was doing it all myself. And my dad was like, you're living with this the rest of your life, and we're not going to be here to hold your hand forever. So you have to learn how to do this. You have to learn how to do this in school. So I think, their emphasis on independence, even from when I was really young, made me feel like, well, this is just another thing I have to deal with. Just like some people, my brother has a peanut allergy, right? So they were like, oh, it's just Quinn has his peanut allergy and Hailee has diabetes and Leah has to wear glasses. It was just like another thing about you, It was not like a big deal. It was just, this is part of your routine, part of your day. I don't think I really noticed that it made my life more difficult until I was in middle school. And then I started having more complications with diabetes or just consequences to different things. I think that's when I really noticed that I was like, okay, wow, this is a little bit different. It's a little bit harder sometimes. But when I was a kid, I didn't really notice. I think everyone around me tried to keep it as normal as possible. I actually had a nurse in elementary school that I had to go down to her office and test in her office every day. And she made a game out of it. And so I was allowed to bring 2 friends with me, and then her and the librarian would participate, and we would guess what we thought my blood sugar was going to be before I tested. And then whoever was right the most number of times that month got some sort of prize. So she used to really make it kind of getting my friends involved and teaching them about it. And kind of the rule too was I couldn't bring the same person every time. So it's kind of teaching different people what to look for, maybe symptoms. She would talk about okay, what do you think Hailee is? Okay, why do you think that might be her blood sugar? So teaching young kids how to look for symptoms of when I was low or when I was high so that they could help me or maybe address it.
Oh, that's actually really fun. Would you say that the kids when you were younger were really accepting and curious, just kind of?
Yeah. So I think kind of the good thing was I had to go to the hospital. I spent about 4 days, I believe, in the hospital. So for them, they got a little bit of okay, this is why Hailee's in the hospital. When you're in first grade, second grade, the teachers are very they're going to explain everything to you if someone's gone. So they explained it. And then I think just kind of the nurse incorporating them and kind of incorporating me really helped with that education. So yeah, my friends never treated me differently. It was pretty much the same, I think, from before I was diagnosed to after, just more steps in my day.
What made your transition to middle school so difficult?
So hormones play a big role in control. So you have to face a lot more unpredictability. Playing sports. So adrenaline will cause spikes, pretty dramatic spikes for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people. And then once you're done playing sports, obviously that adrenaline's gone, you'll drop. So facing more competitive sports, playing more sports, getting more involved in different things, and then also hormones just made it very difficult to control things. Sometimes I felt like I didn't have control at all. And doctors are telling you, okay, well, you need to do this and this and that to have more control. But to be honest, it doesn't always matter. Sometimes, every person, I think this is something that I think is misunderstood, is that every diabetic, specifically type 1, is kind of similar or has similar cases, or is like they should be able to follow the textbook and have textbook numbers, but it just doesn't work that way. So I think when I would go in and I'd say, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what's going on. And I had this doctor tell me, well, that's not what our textbook says should be going on. It was very frustrating for me.
I met you kind of in high school. You're a year ahead of me, and we played sports together. And I remember, if we were just hanging out before a game or something, you would be checking your insulin, or at lunch, and you'd be, just kind of taking care of it all. Do you feel like by the time you got into high school, you had a better grip on it?
No. I would like to say yes. But I don't think I really had a handle on everything that it was going to require of me until even the end of college.
Okay, I was going to say, do you mind explaining how it did kind of impact your life? And you're kind of saying you had to make all these adjustments and stuff. Like, what kind of stuff did you have to do?
I was on an insulin pump when I think starting when I was 9. I did that for a while, and then an insulin pump can make things a little bit easier. I was on one of the earlier models of the insulin pump, but it also can make you a little bit lazy because it doesn't require kind of as much diligence treating as early when you eat. So you have to treat every time before you eat. And if you have to like go get a shot from the fridge and give that insulin first, that can cause you to be a little more diligent and a little bit more aware and making sure you get the medicine before you're eating. Whereas a pump, you can go, oh, shoot, I forgot. Oh, I'll just give it now. But then those cause spikes. So yeah, so I think when I was in high school, I had to switch back to shots kind of to push myself to be more diligent. But also an insulin pump has a range of less than 1 arm length. So like I'm hooked to something, tethered to something that doesn't even extend like my full arm length. So as you can imagine, it gets caught on everything. It's not practical when you're playing sports. It's not practical when you really want to do anything. You have to wear pants with pockets that have enough space for that. You have to wear clips. You have to wear some sort of something to keep that tethered to your body at all times. So shots allow for a little bit more flexibility, but also push for the diligence.
Okay, so would you say you prefer kind of doing the shots now?
For a while, yes, I did. It allowed me to have, I wasn't always tethered to diabetes. I could go through my day and no one would know. I mean, a shot, especially when they started using disposable pens, basically pens that already were full of a certain amount of insulin, and then you throw them away when you were done. Disposable pens allow me to carry that around my pocket or leave it in a bag or carry it in a purse or carry it in a backpack or anything. It allows me just to carry it with me, but I don't have it tethered to me. So I think for a long time, that flexibility, kind of that freedom helped me feel more, I guess, if you want to say more normal. It wasn't like a kind of a glaring symptom of like, oh, here, look, this person has diabetes. But now where I'm at in my life, like I love it when people stop me. It happened when I was getting a haircut a couple months ago. Happens when I'm getting a bagel at a bakery. People will stop me. You're type 1 diabetic. And, oh, my daughter's a type 1 diabetic. Or, oh, my spouse is a type 1 diabetic. And they know what that device looks like. And it's a, connection. So I think now it's really nice. It's nice to have kind of more control, better technology, but also that community.
Yeah, so you kind of enjoy having those interactions where people can see you and they're like, oh, or like maybe like younger people see you like, oh, like she has it. Like it kind of, you're just a normal person, like nothing, just hanging out. Yeah, I like that.
And also pumps have made a lot of progress too. So like the first pump I was ever on is nothing like the pump I'm on now. This pump is hooked up to a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. So that takes my blood sugar every 5 minutes. Which just allows for a lot better control. It graphs it for me. It allows me to send that data to my doctor so they can make decisions even when I'm not there. Technology has made a lot of progress, even in my life. I mean, look, when I was diagnosed, I was literally drawing insulin from a vial with a syringe to like refillable pens, to disposable pens, to pumps, to more advanced pumps.
To now every 5 minutes you're being checked. That's really nice. One thing Somebody I knew back in high school, they didn't have type 1 diabetes. They had like hypoglycemia. So it usually occurred while they would be playing a sport, they would almost pass out, and instantly we would have to give them something like just something with sugar, like candy, whatever was like available they would need, because they would lose their vision. All would happen so quickly. Did you ever experience anything like that, or was yours more stable?
That is a common experience, which is kind of cool because I'm able to relate to people who don't even have diabetes, but just may have more, their body uses sugar just a little bit differently. And they have to make adaptations to deal with that, especially when you work out or play sports or whatever. Same kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure the adrenaline and kind of the emotions of playing sports, that causes a lot of, I guess, side effects for people. For type 1 diabetics, characteristic things are your hand will shake and I can't control it. Same thing with your leg. But I think the biggest thing for me, especially now, and my symptoms too have changed over the years. So that's kind of does not make things easier. But through college and even now, I will start to fall asleep. It's my body fully shutting off.
Is that from low levels of glucose?
So basically, if my blood sugar is low, I don't have enough sugar to do all of the processes in my body that you need sugar for. Instead of like trying to keep me moving, keep my arms moving, keep my brain working, right? It's just going to tell you, go to sleep. We need to recharge. And so that's kind of a scary thing because I can't exactly go and eat something if I'm falling asleep.
Yeah, if your body is trying to conserve as much energy as possible, it's probably hard to get up.
Right.
Do you have a system in place for if something like that were to happen, or just kind of hope for the best, hope it doesn't happen?
Yeah, so that's another thing that I've kind of had to face through growing up, really, is specifically in middle school when I used to go to bed, my parents would get up and they would test me in the middle of the night to make sure that I was okay. And there were many times where I would wake up with a spoonful of sugar or corn syrup in my mouth. And I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, why is this in my face? That was kind of something my parents did to help monitor that. But it just really requires testing more often, which is not always fun, hard to remember, just another step. It's like, I think of it almost like brushing your teeth, right? So like, imagine someone telling you, I mean, it's hard sometimes to remember to brush your teeth. The habit is there if you can build the habit. But sometimes you're like, oh, I just don't want to brush my teeth. It's just an extra step. But then imagine if someone was like, brush your teeth 7 times a day. God, that's just something extra to remember all the time. So my parents were good when I was young about kind of trying to supplement what I was able to do and always reminding me, trying to make me keep logs so that it was just holding me more responsible.
I do like how you said your parents had you, because you are right. It is something you and only you will have to deal with for your life. So I think it really is good how they kind of instilled that, like you need to learn how to manage that.
So you are getting married soon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Since you have the newer technology, does your fiance have to check on you in the night, or does it work from your phone? It alerts you somebody somehow. How does that work?
So I can actually show you what it sounds like if you want. It's pretty obnoxious. It's gonna run through its sign. But yeah, so it'll go through signs. I think it's trying right now, but you might hear it beep. So it's loud enough that it will wake up my fiance, but it does not wake me up. If I'm low, if I'm at the point where it is registering, I'm not going to hear it. So it's really, it sounds like, oh, great idea. It should wake you up. It should be great. But it's better now than it's ever been, but it's not good enough to fully wake me up.
As you said, you are lucky enough to have somebody there, but for people who are living alone, even if it did wake them up, like we said, it's probably hard for them to get up and actually get what they need to feel better. So they might have to keep that in their bed or something.
When I first moved into the first apartment I lived in by myself, after college, after I had roommates, all that stuff, I had several instances where I had to have friends come and break into. You can hear it.
I did. I just heard that. Yep.
It's almost kind of like a fire alarm or something, like a little just like.
Yeah, it's not super loud. So it'll make that obnoxious noise until you tell it to stop. So obviously, like, if you're in the room, you're gonna be like, okay, what's going on? So when I lived by myself, I had a couple instances where friends in Kansas City, my mom would have to call them, like, hey, can you go and try and get into her apartment. My uncle lives locally. He had a key. There was a couple times he had to come in and make sure I was okay.
Wow. So it alerts your mom, and then your mom has to go.
No, my mom just knows that if I'm not up by like 11:30, something's wrong.
Okay. So is it like normal for you to like check in with her in the morning, kind of?
Not anymore. Not now that I don't live by myself. She's let me have a little bit of that freedom. But yes, if I didn't text her by 8 or 9.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's kind of, I had those in place, but because my parents live in Michigan, it's hard for them. So even one instance where there was no one around that she could get a hold of, I woke up to the police banging on my door for a wellness check.
So can she call the police for you? Is that what happened?
Yeah, so like she can call the office of my apartment complex. She could have called the office, but they won't check in on me. So she's forced to call basically the police and have them do a wellness check. Now, if you do that often enough, they're going to be like, are you just calling, but once in a while, yeah, they'll do that for you.
So I guess it's really important to kind of have a support system wherever you are.
It's almost impossible not to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you normally just on a day-to-day basis take care of it yourself, but there are instances where you can't do it by yourself. What happens if no one comes to check on you?
Sometimes my body will have a natural response where it'll break down muscle. That's why when I was younger, I was so thin and kind of sickly looking, is because my body was killing itself. For a short term, it'll start to break down muscle. It'll start to find sugar wherever it can. I guess you hope that happens, or you hope someone checks on you.
So once your body starts doing that, will you then wake up?
Yeah. So after I get above a certain point, I'll start to regain more of my consciousness function. It just depends. So I can test my blood sugar and I'm 45. That's low. So my range is 80 to 150, and I can test and I'll be 45. That's not good. But I'll be totally fine. I'll be able to have a conversation with you. I'd be able to, answer pretty much any question. And then another day I'll be 52 and I can't tell you what date it is. So it's not even a consistent, like, here's the cutoff, because those numbers are really just estimates of how much, sugar you have per amount of blood.
Is there any like specific, not like diet, but just like way of eating that you have to kind of go about?
So there are certain foods. I don't drink regular soda. I try to avoid some sweets and stuff. There are certain foods I will avoid just because I don't want to deal with the spikes. But I eat pretty much anything anyone else eats. I think the biggest thing that really helps me is exercising. So I don't spike as much when I exercise, and not these like hard, I don't do any like CrossFit or anything like that, but like, runs, extended muscle building, but also cardio type exercises really help prevent spikes for me.
Okay. So for you, it's important to kind of stay more in shape.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people will say, oh, you just work out because you want to be in such good shape or whatever. For me, it's the spikes that I have to deal with on days where I'm like, okay, today I'm just going to, kind of have a chill day. The number of spikes that I have to deal with on that day, or the amount of insulin I have to give, or the changes I have to make to my diet are not worth it. I'd rather go for a 20-minute walk and avoid that altogether.
What happens when your levels get too high?
I don't feel good either. It's better to be high than low. I can give more insulin. I can work out a little bit, go for a walk, eat foods that are what we consider free foods. So like carrots, meat, cheese, those types of things. They just don't have enough carbs really for me to have to treat for them. So I would try and do that. How you feel when you're high is more or less some symptoms when you have like a stomach bug. Your stomach hurts. You just feel like, eh.
So it seems like high, you still feel really not good, but low seems like it's more dangerous.
Yeah. How much you're able to function is different. When you're high, I can definitely function. But when you're low, it becomes difficult.
Diabetes is pretty common, and I bet if people kind of took a look around, they would notice a lot more people that they know that have it. What are some other, just kind of in social situations, how do you handle if people don't know you have diabetes, or, if someone doesn't know what to do for you if you were having a low?
So I always love when people ask me questions, or if, a lot of times I'll be having a conversation with someone, or I'll be doing something and will pull out a package of fruit snacks. That's my go-to when I'm low. I can't even tell you how many fruit snacks I've eaten in my life, a ridiculous amount. So I'll pull out a bag of fruit snacks, I'll start eating them, and people are like, what are you doing? So that gives me an opportunity sometimes to explain to people like, oh, I'm a diabetic. Here, let me show you some of the symptoms I'm experiencing right now. My hands are shaking, or I look really pale, or, they're kind of, I just feel not very good. So I try and explain to people in those situations when I have the opportunity. Now I beep all the time, pretty much. So that also is an opportunity because people are like, what's beeping? Is that your phone? Is that, no, I'm a diabetic. I like to not make it the first thing that I tell people. I like to be like, when they ask questions like, okay, what's one thing people should know about you? Like, I never use that because I don't want that to be the first thing people think of when they see me. I will bring it up or talk about it if it comes up because it is important that people around me know. And I think a lot of people do want to know. They do want to help you.
I think that that's a pretty common thought with people. You don't want that to be the thing that's going to define you in the eyes of new people that don't really know you. But, at the same time, it is important because if you just start talking and you're not making any sense or like you just pass out, it's important for people to know why that happened.
Yeah, no, it is really important. It's really important to, again, it's one of the things you should think about if someone passes out, right? Is maybe they have some type of, maybe they are just diabetic. Maybe it just takes a package of fruit snacks. Maybe, especially when you're young, there could be other reasons. So I think it is important and I don't want, if I'm low, right? I don't want someone to be like, oh, she must need insulin and to give me a bunch of insulin and then not help me at all. So in that case, that's not the response. So learning stuff like that. What does low mean? I've had a lot of friends. They're like, oh, you're low, so you must have to give insulin. Oh, no, that will send me to the hospital.
Do you want to explain that really quick?
When you're low, you need to eat something with sugar, typically fast acting sugars, I guess. So things that your body can break down quickly and convert into, energy and sugar.
Is there any advice that you would give to people that are new to diabetes themselves or just the family and friends of people caring for someone with diabetes? You're
going to really have to learn how to feel when you're high and you're low. And that's kind of counterintuitive because we're told don't be high, don't be low, but you need to have a good sense. So hypoglycemia unawareness, when you can't realize that you're low or you can't recognize when you're high, that's a problem. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be really difficult because in all reality, this can tell me if I'm low and I haven't realized it yet, but I know before this. So a lot of times now, especially because I'm well controlled at this point, I will be going to grab fruit snacks from our cabinet or whatever, and I'm already opening them, eating them, and now it's beeping at me. But if you don't have those senses, right, and it's going to take time to build that up, that's really all the technology in the world can help, but really catching lows and highs before they become a problem is what you want. You want to be in that happy range as much as possible. You don't have to change all aspects of your life, but you will have to learn to incorporate maybe new routines or different strategies and not being afraid to ask questions specifically with doctors or to challenge them a little bit. I've had several doctors over the years, and I was diagnosed in Maine. Maine Medical Center is a phenomenal children's unit. It really pushed me when I lived in Michigan, even when I've lived in Kansas. When someone's giving me hey, this is the textbook response or this is the textbook answer, and it's not working for me, I'm like, no, that's not working. I need something else. What else do you suggest? Learning what works for you is going to require that you ask questions and you find other people who are going through the same thing.
I feel like a lot of people want to do exactly what they're told and recommended, which obviously to an extent, but also knowing yourself, you know yourself better than anyone else knows you. So you know what treatment works for you, and just for everybody else to kind of figure out what works for them so they can stay healthy and do what they want. Yeah, I like that.
Now I pretty much exclusively see a nurse practitioner, and I found that she investigates my case more because she doesn't have as many patients. So she'll take the time to, hey, send me your results. Let me see how that change we discussed with the doctor went. So she's really worked with the lifestyle I want to live and incorporating my treatment into that.
That's really cool. I think a lot of doctors just kind of, like you said, give you the textbook of something, but it's really cool to have someone that's willing to work with you, help you lead the lifestyle that you want to have. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, anytime.
I had a great time today. Yes, I feel like I learned so much. You were great to have on. So thank you a lot.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
We want to say a big thank you to Hailee for being a guest on our show today. If you have a story you want to personally share on the show or want us to read on air, find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at JustAPersonPod, or send us an email at justapersonpod@gmail.com. And we'll see you next Monday with another new episode.